Hey everyone, Benjamin here from the Zephyr project. It feels like yesterday since Zephyr 3.7 was released back in July of this year. And today, November the 15th, 2024, about 4 months later, Zephyr 4.0 is already out. And the community has been pretty busy putting together new features, fixing bugs. It's basically, I think, over 600 people, 600 individuals who ended up contributing one way or the other. So thanks to everyone. If you're watching the video, you might be one of those. Lots of first-time contributors also for this release. And yeah, as always, I've prepared maybe less, but still some demos to show you what's been cooking. And yeah, let's dive right into it. So let's pull the release notes for 4.0 working draft, since we're just a few hours ahead of the release. Mostly the final release notes, though. Of course, all the features have been, the feature freeze was already a few weeks back. So everything is pretty stable by now. It's only a matter of actually getting those release notes out there, starting with the secure storage subsystem. So I know that it's been keeping a few people busy for during the entire release cycle, and actually even before. I think that this is work that started even before, the idea being that this new secure storage subsystem provides a way and an implementation basically of the PSA secure storage API, providing a standard common API to store and retrieve data that's effectively secure, potentially even like secure at rest, by means of leveraging PSA APIs. And maybe more interestingly is that it doesn't really matter. Like ideally, you have hardware that helps you store the data really securely. But if you don't, you can still get some level of encryption by just using software, basically. And then the API is pretty transparent in that sense. So we're going to see a quick demo. Basically, one thing that the secure storage subsystem allows you to do is to use various backends to effectively store the data. One such backend could be potentially the Zephyr settings API as like a quick and easy way to store encrypted key values, if you will. And so if I were to run and to manipulate the settings through the regular API using the native simulator, like I often do for those demos, I'm going to basically build and run the sample on my machine. By default, one thing that the native simulator does that's pretty convenient and useful is that it can simulate flash storage in the form of a file on my local file system that's effectively contains the binary content of my entire flash. So that's stored right there in my build folder, and it's the flash.bin file, which is that's the entire flash. And so the flash is obviously or often split into different partitions. My storage partition, where the settings end up being written to, is at offset FC000, which is what I'm looking at right here in my command line. And of course, those settings that have been stored, they are very much unencrypted, which might or might not be a problem, depending on what kind of information it is you're storing. You could probably come up with some ad hoc way of encrypting the data, bring your own ciphers and do it your way. But yeah, that's not necessarily what you want, right? And so enter the new secure storage subsystem. I'm going to basically build and run the secure storage sample, which if I'm running it against a target like the native simulator that doesn't have some like hardware support for things like TFM and like the basically secure elements and whatnot, then it's just going to rely on the local like random number generator, the entropy source that comes with the native simulator. It might not be super secure, but to me, as an application developer, I have the benefit of having one single API that would work just the same if I were to use secure elements. We can actually see in the build logs that actually warns me that I might not be doing something that's fully secure, but that's kind of intentional in this case. And so what the sample does is that it tries to store in the file system, in the settings subsystem, something that's should be, that very much plain and clear text, except that if I am to look in the very same spot in the flash as I was before, then right now, I cannot make sense of what's there, right? So that's the secure storage in action. And it's very much customizable, and it's very much one of those new additions to Zephyr 4.0 where the documentation really rocks, quite frankly. There's, as maybe you could tell from my hand waving during the demo, there's a lot of moving parts in like PSA, TFM, etc. Not everything I understand and I fully grasp myself in terms of like the security implications of all of these. But if you have a better security background than I have, or if you have, if you're interested in doing the right thing, then this is a good starting point to understand what's happening, to understand the limitations, to understand the configurability as well, in terms of how you want things to be encrypted, how you want things to be persisted on the system, and yeah, the sample I just went through is basically this guy right here. So that's for the secure storage subsystem. As I said, a lot of work went into it. So yeah, check it out. Moving on, I don't think I have a demo, but I will show you the documentation for this guy, because it's also the same. Like, it's really, really thorough and a good starting point to understand whether you should care about ZMS or ZMS, the new Zephyr memory storage subsystem. Essentially, kind of a successor, if you will, or a continuation of NVS, the non-volatile storage subsystem. Essentially coming up with a way and an API to store and retrieve key values on a file system, except that it's sort of optimized for regular and historical, traditional, if you will, NOR flash, but also for new types of RAM, like resistive RAM, MRAM. I should have checked what the M stands for. Don't remember right now. But the idea is that you may have some types of non-volatile storage that doesn't necessarily require for a sector to be erased before being written again. And so and that's the case for ZMS, the subsystem knows that, then it can be smarter in terms of well leveling and in terms of utilizing the hardware better and potentially also giving it a longer lifetime, right? And so that's, again, something that's very well documented in the ZMS documentation, like things like, wear leveling, like I said, even to the point where if you want to do the math in terms of, I'm going to be writing X amount of data in sectors that are Y large, how long is it going to take for me to exhaust the numbers of cycles that my flash is able to go through? So yeah, and I mean, you can see some interesting figures actually right there. So check it out. An early plug. I will be talking about it some more towards the end of the video, but I might as well do it right now. In just a week, or less than a week actually, we will be doing, like we always do or often do, a live special episode of the Zephyr Tech Talks, where I will be inviting some of the people who've made significant contributions to Zephyr 4.0 And in this case, ZMS, the main author and the person behind it, will be there to answer our questions, will be there to tell us everything that I said that was wrong. He will be correcting me and getting things and getting the story straight. But yeah, really cool. Again, a lot of work went into that one as well. A few new driver classes, new device driver subsystems were added. So basically what that means is that you have new APIs and usually a handful of drivers that have been contributed alongside the new API to sort of demonstrate that this is effectively going in the right direction. This is effectively something you can already start using today. Analog comparators, something that it's a piece of IP basically that as opposed to ADCs will allow you to, if you have two analog inputs that you want to compare, you want to know when you're crossing a particular threshold, there are some specific IP blocks that basically do that sort of natively without having to do like you typically do with the typical ADC sampling and conversion and basically add latency. The analog comparators are usually faster, more efficient, and there's a bunch of MCUs out there that have analog comparators built into them. Nordic has some, NXP has some, and more actually. So as of today, the new analog comparator subsystem added drivers for some of the Nordic comparators, low power comparators, as well as NXPs. But there will be more, right? It's the API is pretty straightforward, and you can effectively you configure your comparator. Usually in device tree, you may actually tweak it or reconfigure it at runtime. And then the idea is that either on demand or rather, most likely using an interrupt, you want to be sort of notified and you want to know when input A is greater and higher than input B, sort of thing, which you can do through the new API. So that's one. No demo for that one. I would have been pretty boring probably, but there's a shell actually that you can use to quickly and easily interact with this. Speaking of shells and speaking of demos, this one I'm going to do a quick demo of stepper motors. For a long time, Zephyr has been supporting PWM and sort of indirectly, it would have been possible to control servo motors, right? I think we have one of the maybe oldest code samples in the tree is for controlling the servo motor. Stepper motors are a slightly different beast, slightly different way of driving them, and there's different topologies of stepper motors, and maybe more importantly, there's also dedicated ICs that can provide even additional functionality in terms of being more energy efficient, being able to automatically deal with accelerating, decelerating the stepper motor automatically and efficiently, again, detecting when the motor is stalled and stuff like that. So new API, new drivers, as with the previous item with the analog comparators. Same for stepper motors. We have a new subsystem where you can configure your stepper motors in device tree. You configure basically the basic sort of topology of your motor, and then at runtime you can always tweak it. You want the motor to be going slower, going faster, switch directions, etc., etc. Anything you would expect from a stepper motor, you can do through the API. And two drivers as of 4.0, but I think there's already one lined up for 4.1. Those two drivers are basically a very simple, purely GPIO based driver that will do basic control, and another one that's using a Trinamic 5041 IC that's much smarter, if you will. And with this particular controller, you can achieve better performance and do more complex, basically, patterns and stuff like that. I do have a quick and a short demo here on my desk. So let me bring it up. Let's check. Yeah, the webcam is working. So the demo is running. So as I mentioned, there's a shell also for the stepper motors, the new stepper motor subsystem. So what I have on my desk is a small motor right here with some kind of gouge, I guess. It is connected to this guy right here. It doesn't really matter, right? But it's connected to an ST microelectronics board, and kind of in between the motor and the board, there is this like really low cost, probably very inefficient power-wise and whatnot, but very low cost driver. Which is, I mean, it's effectively just transistors to make sure that I can bring enough power into the motor. I don't want to drive it just straight with the current that comes off of the GPIOs. It's amplified, if you will, but it's still pretty basic. Like, it's not doing anything else than just providing more current to the motor. So yeah, this is it. I have a motor right here, and I have my shell right here. So let's see, stepper shell. Oh, that has a lot of options. How about I enable constant velocity mode? It looks like it's something that will allow me to move at a constant velocity. I'm going to do that for the motor. I mean, let me show you this way rather. The content assist lists and shows me all the devices that might be I might want to apply the command to. Of course, only the motor makes sense in this case. And what else? Hitting tab once more. I want to turn in the positive direction, and I want to turn at speed 500. Oh, there we go. So that's 500. Maybe 100 is slower. That's cool. And maybe I want to switch directions, right? And there we go. I mean, I'm driving a stepper motor. What if I were to go much faster? Let's see, 800. Oh, it's stalled, right? Like we briefly mentioned that before. 700, it doesn't want to do it either. 600, it's okay. And now 700 is probably okay because the motor already has some momentum. So this is where you can sort of imagine that, yeah, and even 800 I can achieve now, 900 I can't. You see the idea. This is where having a better way to drive the motor would help, right? Because you really don't want to have the motor being stalled. But yeah, that's a pretty cool new subsystem. I'm excited to see what people will be building with it, because there's a lot. I mean, yeah, lots of applications, right? In medical, in industrial automation, etc., etc. So that's for the stepper motor, which I will stop right now because it's going to be making some noise. There we go. What else do we have? Haptics. I should have done a demo. I have it running, except that it's not particularly exciting or particularly easy to share vibrations with you guys. I mean, we share a good vibe, I hope, but Haptics is all about vibrations, right? And like using driving motors, again, I guess, driving motors in such a way where you're providing users with some tactile feedback, right? Like when you touch your phone, there's different ways the phone is going to be buzzing, all the way to the point where, or when you're using a remote control for your PlayStation or whatever, all those different kind of feedback. It's something, I mean, it's domain of its own, right? In terms of ICs that do that, and what the new Haptics subsystem do is that it provides a single pane of glass and a single common API to interact with all things Haptics. At a really, really high level, it's basically you want to turn your motor and you want to vibrate on or off, right? But it's more than that. Like when you buy dedicated hardware to do Haptics control, they come, for example, with pre-programmed wavetables, like sounds, if you will, or like recordings, pre-recordings of vibrations for like gentle tap, double gentle tap, medium tap, whatever. The idea being that you want your API to also allow you to do some kind of to interact with this aspect of your IC, right? So there's code samples for that, and there's one. As of today, there's one driver in Tree, which, by the way, if you're interested in playing with this particular, I think it's TI, right, the DRV2605. One thing that I did, and like I told you, I could have done a demo, but I have no particular interest in this particular manufacturer. But if you care, or if you're already sort of into the microelectronica click ecosystem, there's actually this guy, the LRA motor click, which is probably only like 10 or 20 bucks, and this runs the DRV2605. This has the tiny motor right here, and you can use it to run this very demo, right? And what the demo does is that it's just going through the new Haptics API and the new vendor specific, the 2605 specific API to trigger some vibrations based on some particular patterns that are like the ones that are available in the device itself. Like I want to play gentle tap for 10 seconds. I want to play medium tap for 10 seconds, etc., etc. You get the idea. This sample, just works out of the box. For example, with the Micro E click or any other DRV2605, really. So that's quite nice. I'm sure we will see more analog comparators, stepper motors, and Haptics drivers and driver implementations over the next couple releases. Something else that I thought was worth mentioning, for a long time, Zephyr has had some support of audio, right? Like I2S, for example, and like audio codecs for either recording and digital microphones for recording audio, playing back audio to speakers and whatnot. Similarly, there's been some support for video and some code in the tree and code samples to do video streaming, video encoding, etc. But some of those areas were frankly a bit rough around the edges, and it's been quite nice to see that over the past few months, several companies have been all together collaborating on improving the story there, to the point where there's like now lots of new image sensors and like camera sensors, if you will, that are supported in Zephyr. More video interfaces, as in I want to do video on ESP32, I want to do video on NXP, and a bunch of others. This has been either improved or straight up added to for this particular release, and similarly for audio. And so just check it out, right? Like further down the release notes, check out the section for I2S for video to see what's new. As a quick demo, I thought it would be interesting to show you basically one very simple sample, which, assuming that you have a display and a camera, it turns your display plus camera into like a an actual camera device with a way for you to see what it is you're filming or you're looking at. And so this particular demo I ran and I deployed on this guy right here. So I'm going to turn the webcam on to show you. I think I did a demo last time already of this nice fancy round display. So it's a 240 times 240 pixels touchscreen actually, but it's the main use for today will be the fact that it's a display. And on the other side, and as part of the same package, if you will, we have an ESP32, a Xiao ESP32S3, and a camera. And just again, like no particular interest from my side with this particular provider and manufacturer, but just to give you a sense of like I mean, I think this is cool form factor wise, and it's also pretty cool on your wallet, right? Like it's I think we're looking at like $18 or less than $20 for the screen, and pretty much same for the MCU plus camera sensor, which is an OV5640. So that makes for a pretty cool device, right? And like you could even, it could be battery powered. So that's pretty cool. And what if I were to actually power it to run the demo? So let's see. This is where I will be lacking hands maybe. Let's see. Tack. There we go. Powering it. And this is my desk. I think it's flipped on the side, like it's 90 degrees flipped on the side. But I mean, I think you get a sense of the fact that the frame rate is actually quite good. And like I said, I mean, having this work just out of the box, I find this really, really cool. And what I also find really cool is that behind the scenes, there's also the work on video also enabled other interesting improvements. Like, for example, in this particular case, my ESP32 doesn't have enough RAM. The MCU itself doesn't have enough RAM. So for the video sample to work and for the video acquisition to work, it needs to rely on external RAM, which the device actually has, right? But enabling it and having it work just out of the box is now just a matter of toggling a few K configs, right? And just telling the build system that the video buffers should be stored in the external RAM, and automatically the build system looks into my device tree. What are those partitions that are being effectively flagged and labeled as being external RAM, and it uses them. That's very cool. There's also new samples that have been contributed to do sort of the same, but rather than using the native display drivers, rely on the LVGL. So basically getting you closer to leveraging video in maybe more of a full-blown GUI. I'm certainly expecting more to come for that one. We will be talking more about video in the Tech Talk in just a few days. One thing that I know is coming, and I don't want to spoil the fun, but we'll be basically doing just the same as I've shown, except that you would add to this the ability for the device to also act as a USB webcam, which I think it tells something about sort of like the maturity and the completeness of the whole thing. So that's for video and multimedia capabilities. This one, I don't have a demo, but it's totally worth mentioning in my opinion. There was a contribution made to basically add support in Zephyr for Prometheus, and more specifically have a library and all the APIs, making it easy for to expose metrics to a Prometheus metrics scrapper, right? And so the idea basically, Prometheus is like, originally, this is more an IT or even like a cloud thing. It's a monitoring solution where you have a pretty pretty lightweight way to run some agents on servers and clusters and whatnot, so that they expose an HTTP endpoint, which exposes metrics like available memory and temperature, CPU usage and whatnot. And then you have a central server that regularly polls and scrapes the data from these endpoints. And it kind of makes sense that potentially, as part of like your monitoring infrastructure, just like you will be monitoring some servers, you might actually be monitoring some edge gateways running Zephyr, maybe even some actual endpoints. And the new like the integration of the Prometheus library allows you to do just that with just a couple macros and a couple API calls. You can start exposing CPU usage and whatever metrics you can think of. I don't think it taps sort of like automatically into the statistics subsystem of Zephyr, but it probably could, right? Like you could have probably an approach where you don't even have to code anything for your metrics. It would be just about basically enabling already existing metrics that Zephyr has if you enable them. That's for Prometheus. There's a few more improvements on the networking front, which are definitely covered in the release notes, and which we will be going through in the tech talk as well. Last, or almost last, but not least, I hope, this is worth a shout out, I believe, because there's a lot of work that went into improving the documentation, not necessarily like the documentation itself, as in like we saw for ZMS secure storage. Like this is actually like documentation that's been written. That's really good to see, but sometimes we also need to make improvements on the infrastructure, right? And making sure that things are easy to navigate. We still have a long way to go, but there's a lot that's been done, and I actually need some help. I'm gonna bring the full release notes there to get a sense of what's new, and actually show you, in case you didn't already stumble upon some of those changes, making sure that you know they're there, because for most of them, the idea will be that, some of you, you know the Zephyr, you use Zephyr on a day-to-day basis. Maybe the code and the source tree is your reference. Like you don't need or don't feel like you need the documentation, and you just find everything by grabbing your code base and looking at the Git history and whatnot. But for many others, it starts with the documentation, right? Say, for example, you want to find a board that you want to run Zephyr, and you have some boards in your drawers. You know that you likely want to select like SparkFun, like you have some SparkFun devices, and you want to go for ARM. What is available, right? And like doing those kind of filtering and getting a sense of what's there, rather than having a flat list of hundreds and hundreds of boards. We've made it so that it's now easier to basically filter by various criteria, right? Like that you want an ARM64. What else? What's there? Like for ARM64, in total there are 23 boards available. If we are looking at ARM, and more specifically, let's see, STM32 family of SoCs. What is there? Well, there is a lot that's probably coming from ST Micro itself, but there's actually a lot more, as you can see, right? Like there's lots of vendors, and so maybe more specifically, you get the idea. I want an STM32F7. There's a few options from ST themselves. Looks like it's only ST. How about F4? Yeah, that's a different story here, right? Like STM32F4. There's lots of options, right? And So that's something new. And by the way, you can see that this number went. I think it's over 60 new boards since last release. So that's a lot. Similar experience for the code samples. Sure, you could, if you were interested in finding a code sample for, I don't know, ADCs, you can probably ls your way to the samples folder in the Zephyr tree and see what's there. And there are hypothetically an ADC folder. But maybe you will just rather type ADC right here, and that will give you lots of options. Some you maybe you wouldn't have found under an ADC folder, right? Because there's more. There's ADC samples specific to ST. There's ADC samples specific to NPCX apparently, whatever that is, and so on and so forth, right? Like I want to do motor stuff, then there's servo motors. I want to do LVGL, etc., right? All things temperature. What is available for temperatures? There's temperature in the context of communicating with an IoT cloud, temperature in the context of some sensors exposing vendor-specific API. There's temperature in the context of PCI, etc., Bluetooth. So that's also hopefully something that helps navigate the code samples. And kind of related, we actually spent some time making sure that all the descriptions of the code samples were accurate and using the right keywords to help you there. A few things. Some you've actually seen already. Indirectly, as I was walking through the documentation. Stepper motors, let's see, yeah. So this is a place where you can go, right, to navigate and see a documentation for all the available bindings in Zephyr. And one thing that's been added is that given a particular binding, you can directly be taken to its implementation, which I think is really useful because it tells you and gives you a lot of info and complements quite well the binding documentation, because you can actually see what's supported, right? So that's for the bindings. What else? From the readmes of the code samples, you can navigate the code, and this one also you may have seen some of it. When you basically over an API, which now I need to find. Let's see. Oh, there's here one right here. Right. When you over some C APIs, you don't have to go to the Oxygen page. It's already there for you to navigate. So that's and a bunch of other things. I think someone also contributed a way to, like, if you're authoring documentation, there's some nice new improvements as well. Enough on the documentation. That, like I said, I think it was worth mentioning, so that you know, like for the bindings specifically, I hope and I think this actually does better than whatever you could do. However fast you are with grepping and navigating the code base, it might actually be faster to just go to the binding documentation like you want the implementation of the NRF RTC. This was a couple clicks away, right? Try it out and let me know what you think. With that, last but not least, worth mentioning, I here in the call out in the highlights, we don't go through the 60 boards that were added, but you can see them here. It's really all over the spectrum, and all the vendors made significant contributions. New ARM64 boards, lots of ESP32 and Espressif boards as well. NXP has been pretty active. Renesas even more so. Check it out. It's always interesting whether you're looking at dev kits, like kind of like hobbyist, maybe kind of dev kits or more professional evaluation kits, there's a lot that's been added, 60 plus, and shields as well. Shields for variety of things, including camera sensors, for example, like this one. With that, I think we are through for 4.0. I may have forgotten a few things. I hope not too many. We will be back in for Zephyr Tech Talk. So we are just a few days away from this one right here, November the 20th. At 3 p.m. Central European Time, 9 a.m. Eastern. Join us. We're going to talk about like all the things that I mentioned and more, because I'm sure I forgot a few. But ZMS, secure storage, those subsystems where I did way too much hand waving. We will have the real knowledgeable people to get the story straight. Like I said, video. I think we may have a demo of the what's coming next, right? The USB webcams and whatnot, and more. So join us, and let's look forward to Zephyr 4.1 as well, because in just a few days, there will be tons of pull requests making it into the repo and lots of new features to talk about I think we're looking at March of next year. Thanks.